Super speed in media. One of the worst displays is something called CW Flash. It's pretty much a show on the superhero The Flash, and it's bad. It's even worse now. It's so bad. I have 3 points on why I think it's so horrible. Number one is Iris, the wife of the main character, The Flash. She's kind of like, after like the third season, she becomes like a horrible person and a terrible wife. The second reason is since the beginning, he stops to talk to the villain who clearly has evil intent. Like they be shooting people, blowing up cars, tossing cars, all this stuff, and he stops to talk with them to give them a chance to then throw the thing or shoot the thing, attack the thing, or rob the thing. It's honestly just terrible. But I feel like that's mainly to do with the terrible writing, which also fits into point two. And then my third point, which I will not explain, it's just how I feel. I had to write it down. It's too long. Why is it 9 seasons? I thought it was 7 seasons, but no, it's 9. Chapter 1, Iris West. I have a few examples of her being a horrible person slash wife slash teammate. I think the worst thing for like as a friend, even though it's her husband, but you still can like, you get what I mean. Like as a teammate and friend, she says something that makes zero sense due to the fact that she literally hasn't done anything of like significant importance to the story when it comes to actually fighting villains, since the main character Barry is literally the only person fighting them physically. And she says we are the Flash to be like, I'm just as important to this as you are, and like trying to put him down, even though in the scene he isn't really being rude, I guess, which feels like wrong to like try to put someone down for no reason, even though they've been saving the city for at least months now. Then another issue, I forgot which season this happened in, but I know it really messed with her character because she got mad over the fact that Barry decided to save the Earth, which is like 8 billion people, from like exploding. It was the whole universe, so if there's aliens, they would die too. But when he did come back, since he somehow survived that experience, which is crazy, I'd just be excited that my friend is not dead or whoever is not obliterated. But the fact that when he comes back, she is upset that he chose to save everything over her and leaving her behind, and how it hurt her specifically, even though it has nothing to do with her, since everyone would have died. And then after the third season, I'm pretty sure what I just described was third season, I think. Or it was second season, I can't remember. But after the third season, she takes over the entire show and she kind of becomes the main character, which is confusing because she isn't supposed to be the main character, or at least the writers just decided to change their mind in the middle of the story, which kind of like ruins it because they had like made her the leader of the team, even though it wouldn't make sense since she was just a reporter, and now she controls a superhero team. It doesn't make any sense. And it kind of made her like, they had to make her more like imposing as a leader, but it just made her sound rude and arrogant. Not to mention that their on-screen chemistry at this point hit a rock bottom. Every scene they seemed to be in was just arguments or disagreements. There was no real like connection. And then before, like in the first season, Barry had a different love interest, which is a whole separate point, that people actually got really attached to, even though he usually gets with Iris West, like in the comics originally. People seemed fine with this other character because they actually liked their connection, but they had to like abruptly ended it off just to like force him with Iris, which people like didn't like, which made them hate the character naturally. And then on top of that, people got used to it until she then switched up around the third season mark and started acting like a brat. Chapter 2, Super Speed. It is, at least in my opinion, one of the hardest superpowers to ride around due to how insanely powerful it is, especially in a story about fighting crime. Knowing how hard it is to actually not create plot holes for yourself and not to dig yourself into a hole, I can let some things slide for super speed scenes, but the way they handled it in this show was horrible since the beginning. I can excuse the first time he's ever had his powers and the first time he's ever dealt with a threat like the wind guy at the beginning, his first villain with the tornado. I can kind of excuse that, but after that, there should be no reason he should be letting people who can run at a normal human's pace get away from him at all. And then he never, if someone is able to get out of a situation, he never searches the area for said person. It just leaves a bunch of plot holes, not to mention that they give him super OP abilities that literally break the logic of the show. If he had these abilities all the time, which they pretty much state, how could he possibly lose to any of the villains that they showed us? In the 7th episode of the entire series, in season 1, they show he has the ability to move so fast that time seems to have stopped. Honestly, I feel like they could have done better. And third point, of course, is it shouldn't be 9 seasons. Chapter 3, I'm not a writer, but let's try to fix the story. I feel as if they could have changed it a little bit to make it a cohesive story throughout the whole season instead of having small short bits of stories with each individual villain, due to the fact that these villains would not be able to counteract him in any way. Maybe certain ways, like if they have an ability that stop them from getting touched by him, but other than that, he should easily take care of these villains. And I feel like that's the main difference I want for the story in the beginning, at least for the first season, for him to be able to just easily take down these villains. It kind of gets to his head, so eventually when the Reverse Flash comes and attacks him, he's not prepared, he's not ready, he's not a real hero, so he gets humbled and eventually has to become one to defeat his greatest villain, which kind of makes him the city's hero. So in season 2, he deals with being the city's hero, and I guess it'd be more like his appearances. It's not really focused on villains, but there will be some. It's mainly focused on his ability to work with the city and his relationship with it, until Zoom comes and disrespects him and kind of shows off his weakness to his own city. And I don't want him to really beat Zoom. I want it to be a looming kind of loss that he feels. So maybe Zoom, since he was addicted to a speed drug, maybe he overdoses it on it, and that's how he technically wins. But Barry feels something empty in him since he wasn't actually able to deal with the threat. And then in the last season, I feel like it kind of should work in the same way. It seemed decently fine, but maybe just no stopping to talk in front of villains. And Iris not being rude and evil and terrible and all of the above.